Hey, family. It's Kim Love Jones here. I wanted to jump on real quick, and I'm not going to be on here long, but I wanted to talk about why we need to heal before we decide we want to date again. For just 2 seconds, I'm going to share this in my good group because I need to share it in my group. Hold on. Yes. So I wanted to hop on. I wanted to talk about this because I think that it is extremely important that we deal with what's going on in our lives before we decide that we want to get into another relationship. Have you ever been in a relationship where you weren't even sure how or why you got into the relationship, like to begin with, right? Let me just tell you, when I was younger, before I had gotten married, I had like I just knew that I wanted to be married. I didn't really quite understand all the things that were going on that marriage would entail. I didn't really quite know who I was. I wanted to be married because I thought that's what I think every little girl wants to be married, right? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not true of everybody. And I know I'm on here kind of early this evening, but I am getting ready to go to the radio station so me and Najib Smith can do our show for tonight. Um, it's going to be amazing. We are talking about child support. We are going to be we're going to be delving into the advantages and the disadvantages of child support and what it means, and why child support even is necessary. If I could be honest with y'all, why is it even necessary? I want to talk about that, right? Because nobody should be telling anybody that they have to pay child support and take care of their children, but unfortunately that's the way it's set up. So we're going to be digging into that tonight, and that's going to be really, really good. But I want to, if I will, if you'll allow me, for a few minutes, to just talk about why it is necessary to heal. Why it is necessary to heal before you get into another relationship. Why it's necessary to heal, if I can be honest with you, not just necessary to heal, but it's necessary to heal inside of your current relationship if you're in one. And if you happen to be watching this on a replay, hashtag replay for me, just hashtag replay. So when I was married, I really didn't know who I was before I got married, right? All I knew was that I wanted to be married. So I'm just giving you a quick relatable story, right? All I knew was that I wanted to be married. And I think most little girls believe that their knight in shining armor, maybe it was all the crap that I watched as a little girl, all the cartoons that I watched. Maybe it was, this is what I had visualized for my life, as I got older. So now I meet my husband, who happened to be a really, really good dude, right? But I didn't know who I was, right? I didn't know that I was going to respond and react. I didn't even know at that particular time that I was going to be triggered to behave or do things the way that I did. What I believed was that there was always going to be a happily ever after. I didn't know how the intricate details of this whole thing was supposed to work out, right? And I know that there are some people who have been married and they've been married for 25 and 30 years. And when I talk to them, they usually tell me it wasn't easy. They usually tell me that they had to work through a lot of things. And they usually tell me that they love their spouses in spite of everything, right? So, with that being said, what happens is, because I didn't know, and I'm sure a lot of people did not know what it would entail to be married. There were a lot of women and a lot of men that did not understand what it was supposed to be, especially when you're younger, right? Especially when you consider, like, I got everything on lock, because when you're young, you get your job, you go to college, you go to school, you get your education. It's like, oh, so the very next thing is, let's get married. So you get married, right? And you believe in your heart of hearts that this is it. This is my happily ever after. When you go down that aisle between God and all of the witnesses, you're saying, yes, yes, I do, I do, I do, right? Or you never gotten married and you keep falling and bumping your head because you keep meeting the wrong person? Well, to be honest with you, that's rooted in us not knowing ourselves. That's rooted in us not understanding who we are and what we want and all of those things, right? So when I think about the fact that part of the reason why things weren't working out for me in my life, and thank you for watching. I see y'all watching. Y'all can say hello, say hello. I'm not going to be on here long. But part of the reason why I was really, really jacked up was because I had no clarity. But like, I knew that I wanted to get married, but I didn't know what marriage entailed. And if you do not know what something entails, you can have an idea of that's what you want for your life, but without any guidance, right? And my mother was married, but without any guidance, like outside of that, what was I doing actually? I didn't know, right? So I wanted to jump on now, and I want to talk about like why we need to heal before we get into our next relationship, right? Um, when we heal, it actually helps us to understand what we want and what we need, right? And then we wouldn't gravitate towards what's familiar, right? Because a lot of times we get with people who are similar to our home life. We get with people who act like our parents or do some of the things that our parents did. But if we're not clear about what we want and what we need, we'll fall into the same dysfunction that we watched our parents go through. We won't evolve if we're stringent and strict about this is the way my life absolutely has to be. We will most certainly make a whole bunch of mistakes rooted in the dysfunction that we saw when we were growing up, even if it wasn't in your household, but it was in the household of, let's say, your neighbors, your friends. You watch the parents go at it. You watch the parents drink all day. You watch the mother go out and go to work and the dad go out to work. You didn't know what their relationship was like, but you knew that something wasn't quite right there because you didn't see a lot of love. The mother cooked, the father did this, your siblings did whatever they were doing, and there was some things that we learned inadvertently as a direct result of what we witnessed in our own little lives, right? And a lot of times what happens is we get accustomed to living like that. We be believing that this is the way that it's supposed to be. And that's not true. That is absolutely not true. So in order to heal before you get into another relationship, or even to heal within the one that you're in, right? Some of the things that you might want to consider is that the patterns of behavior that you used to have need to change before you get into your next relationship. And I know, because I said it to myself, like I got this thing on lock, I know what I'm doing. But here's the truth. If you just know it in theory and you haven't actually walked that thing out, how healthy are we really? Right? Because like I'm healthy as I don't know what, as long as I don't have anybody challenging me. Right? Hey, Stephen, how are you? Like until I'm challenged, how healed am I really? Right? So you could believe I'm so healed. I got it going on. I know what I'm doing, but nobody's talking. Nobody's checking you. You don't have a filter to run that through. You don't have anybody that challenges you and says, no, this is unacceptable, right? Like a lot of times the reason why people are not in relationships today is because they don't want anybody to challenge them, because they think anybody that challenges them doesn't respect them. They believe that they don't need to work on themselves. I actually got a phone call from somebody I'm extremely close to last night, and they said to me, they was like, and it's so funny. They said, Ma, my son, he said, Ma, we need to go to therapy. And he wasn't talking about me. He was talking about me and his girlfriend, right? And I was cracking up. He said, yeah, she need to work on some stuff. And I said, no, boo-boo, you need to work on some stuff. I said, both of y'all need to work on some stuff. How about that? How about we do that? How about we do that? No, we need to go to therapy, Mom. Me and her need to go to therapy. I said, listen, I hear you. I was cracking up. I said, and you don't need to go to therapy? He's like, no, Mom, I'm good. I could just call you anytime I got a problem. No, you need to go to therapy too. Because most people can't see themselves and they don't see how, even though that's not a serious situation and we was kind of laughing and joking and stuff like that, Like, we don't see ourselves. We always believe it's the other person. And so the healing is so necessary before you get into another relationship, right? And so this is why I just keep talking about healing when I go live lately. And this is for both men and women, because the reality is we need each other. And I want my sisters to heal, but I need my brothers also to heal so that my brothers can get with my sisters. Let me tell y'all, the reason why I'm doing this workshop on May the 10th, and this is real talk. The reason why I'm doing this workshop on May the 10th is because I realized something. That if my sisters never have a standard, they're going to keep running on. It's almost like a hamster wheel, right? You want to keep running and running and running on this hamster wheel, and you're not going to get to where it is that you truly want to be if you don't take the time to do what it is that you need to do for you. But it is also the same for men. So I have not barred men from coming to this conference. I want men to come. You want to be in the room with people who are trying to matriculate upwards. You want to be in the room with people who are elevating their consciousness. So I want it for both my brothers and my sisters, because I promise you that when we do that, when we begin to do our work and our healing, we become better for one another. And that's real talk. That's real talk. What you want to do, though, with this whole healing business is you want to break the cycles. You know what I'm saying? If you do not heal, you will keep attracting the same type of person over and over again in a different body. It's the same hurt, same disappointment, same patterns of behavior. And when you heal, it helps you to see things clearly. You know what I'm saying? So you don't keep repeating the past. You know how they trying to, real talk, they trying to whitewash history. Well, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it, right? And you know how in the political arena, they're trying to whitewash our history. They try not to tell us what happened. They don't want anybody to know about slavery. They don't want to. But if you don't know that, then you're doomed to repeat it. And what's happening is that a lot of people of other persuasions are beginning to understand what happened to us. Right. And so when they begin to understand, they're being a little bit more empathetic. No, they still don't want to trade places with us. They still don't want to trade places with us, but they're beginning to understand the dynamic of what has happened to us as a people and why 400 years of oppression has us behaving and doing some of the things that we do. Right. Even to the point that they make us dislike ourselves, each other. Right. Because it's programming. It's programming. That's why we're all over the place. But it's the same in a relationship. It's the same in a relationship. If and in fact, you do not learn or get the lesson of what happened in your past, understand it, gain some clarity around it, set up boundaries, and do the things that you need to do, then you are doomed to repeat it over and over and over again. And that's why I'm here today. I want to talk about this because we need to heal so that we can, in fact, break the cycles, right? When you begin to heal, you increase your self-worth, your value, the way that you see yourself. When you heal, you start showing up differently. You do not settle for breadcrumbs, right? Because now you know your value, right? And trust me when I tell you, people can feel when you truly love yourself. They can feel it. It's the energy that you exude. You just get better at everything because you begin to do the work on yourself, right? When you're healed, you don't fear being direct. You don't fear being honest about who you are. You don't fear showing up authentically. You stop holding back on what you need when you get healed, right? And then you become a better communicator as a direct result of you healing because you become confident in who you are, right? So here's some things that you could do to help you heal so you can get better. Self-reflection is one of the first ones, right? You want to have the position and the posture of always asking yourself, what did my last relationship teach me? Not just about them, but about me. What do I need to work on before I invite someone new into my life? If you're in a relationship, You can ask yourself this question. Did I have to respond that way? What did it trigger in me? Why is my behavior like this? What can I do to get better in the confines of this relationship? The second step that you could do is practice self-love. And let me just tell you, just FYI, I know I've said this on many, many, many lives. Self-love is not just taking bubble baths and going to the spa to get a massage or going to get your hair and your nails done. It is not. It is also about learning to love your own company. It is about setting boundaries, and it is about pouring into yourself. This is, I promise you, this is what it's about, right? You won't need external validation when you love yourself, right? Self-love looks like saying no and meaning it, right? And standing in what honors you. That's what self-love really is. I mean, we could always, get some retail therapy on occasion. We can always go and get a nice pair of shoes if that's your thing, if that's what you're into. But the reality of the situation is practicing self-love doesn't look like retail therapy. So practicing self-love looks like, let me sit down and write down how I feel about this and why this thing triggered me today at work. Because I need to take care of me. Right? So the other thing that you can do, the other step that you could take is begin to release the emotional baggage, because this is really truly important. You need to journal, go to therapy, get a coach, do some meditation, most of all, pray, but find the things that work for you. Don't suppress how you feel. But when you're healing, you are literally working on being a better you so that things no longer control you, right? The other and fourth step um, is refine your standards. Who were you in the last relationship is not who you are today. It's not. That's who you used to be. That's not who you are now, right? What do you need from love moving forward? What do you need? What does that look like to you? And the reason why I say that is because once you understand what you need in order for you to be your full, authentic self, you stop settling for any shenanigans, period. Like, real talk. You operate in a different way, like, period. When you begin to understand who you are and what you need for your life. You don't settle for the nonsense that people try to give you, because you're clear and you need clarity, right? Now, this is why this is like so very important. Healing isn't about waiting for the perfect partner. It's about becoming the best version of yourself. And when you understand that, you then begin to attract the love that you are meant to have, right? If you understand that you were meant for something greater and you do not have to be with the basic stuff anymore, you begin to change the entire way that you get down, right? When you begin to heal, you find the person that's supposed to be in your life, right? Or you meet the person that's supposed to be in your life. It's important that we gain clarity around what it is that we need and we want, right? Stop settling for stuff that doesn't honor you. Real talk. And I'm going to keep talking about healing because I see all the toxicity online, on social media. I see all the toxicity, whether it is females or it is males, right? And here's the thing, we need each other. We need each other. I don't know when we ever thought that we didn't, right? It's important that we get together and stay together, right? And begin to build something, especially in this economy, in this social economy that we're going through here in the United States. Like, if I can get you to mistrust or distrust your people, your own people, if I can get you to not support one another, if the enemy could get you to debase yourself, lower yourself, continue to think of yourself as unworthy, then you'll just settle for anything and you'll never have everything that you want. And that's a lie. That's a lie, because God promised us, and love is our birthright. And that's the truth, right? I am so excited about doing this show tonight. I want to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of child support. There are so many people who are going through it when it comes to child support. There are a lot of men who like having a fit about paying child support. And there's a lot of men that are raising their kids. Here's the other thing. There's a lot of men that are raising their kids, and they didn't sue the mother for child support. They're just taking care of their kids. They're just doing what they got to do. Real talk. Right. I know a lot of brothers. I shouldn't say all, but I know a lot of brothers who don't get any child support. They just raise their kids and do what they need to do. They're not suing the mother for child support. But there's a lot of women that are suing men for child support. And I want to talk about the reasons why. So y'all have to tune in tonight at 8:00, because it is going all the way down. And right now I'm about to go live over here on TikTok. I'm about to go on these TikTok streets at Kim Love Jones over there. I love TikTok, and I'm going live over there almost every day, because I love them TikTok streets. I really, really do. But yeah, so we got to heal before we start dating again. Before you get back out there. And even if you're in a relationship, let me be clear. If you're in a relationship right now, it does not mean that you can't work on your healing, right? It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that you don't work on being a better version of yourself, right? It doesn't mean that you can't go to your partner and say, listen, I want us to move forward. I want us to, to do certain things. I remember what you said when I first met you. That's when I fell in love with you, blah, 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 blah. And just go to the table with that and saying, let's change how we've been doing business. Just go to the table with that. Just go to the table with that. It will change things when you have somebody who believes in you, who wants the same things that you want, right? And if they don't, what's your next move? What's the game plan? Right? You need to come up with one. You need to devise a game plan. Yes, please heal and work towards your wholeness. Absolutely. Absolutely, Cheryl. How are you, my love? I see you. I see you, sis. I see you. Yeah. What is the game plan to get to better? What's the game plan to get whole? What's the game plan to be in a great relationship? How does it work if you don't start your own healing? I'm going to tell you something. This is probably the most, this is probably the best thing that I ever did. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. I finally surrendered. And people think that your surrender is weakness, but surrender was really my strength. And it's the strength for all of us. I surrendered to God. I gave all of the things that were hurting me. I gave them to God. And I'm not going to tell you that I did not run back up and go get them. There were days when I went back and I stayed mad and I stayed hurt and I was ugly in my spirit, right? That, if I could be honest with you, it was when I surrendered my will and I asked God to come into my heart and to show me. And I started seeking God's face. That's when my real healing began. And as I allow God and the Holy Spirit to not just rest and abide, but to rule in me, the day I decided to ask help me, Holy Spirit, to let go of the anger, let go of the hurt, let go of the pain. The day that I began to ask, to say that, is the day that my healing began. That my real healing, because I was journaling, I was writing. I was a writer from a little girl. I would just sit and write streams of consciousness. I have notebooks. Oh my God. I have so many notebooks I could fill up like a whole big box because I've been writing for years, and 5 subject notebooks. And so, but it was the day that I said, God, I'm tired, and I can't do this my way anymore. It's not working for me. So now I'm not bothered. I don't even allow myself to be so bothered, if that makes any sense. I'm like, God, you got this, because you're here to fight my battles for me. And I don't have to cry. I don't have to let this hurt that people do to me when people hurt me. I don't have to let it like engulf me. I don't have to let it swallow me up. The day I surrendered was the day that my healing really began. And I was walking towards it. It still took me a long time. But it was when I said, God, yes to your will and yes to your way, that things begin to change. And it wasn't an immediate change. I know there's some people out like, oh, you would change overnight when you give your life to God. And oh yeah. No, that in my life, that ain't happened in my life. I'm just gonna be honest. It didn't happen in my life. It didn't. I'm telling the truth. It took me years because I'm hard-headed and I'm mulish. And it took me years to understand that the more I let go of holding other people's feet to the fire is the day that I would be set free. And that's the truth. So I stopped holding, no matter what anybody did. Now I almost let it go as quick as the infraction comes. I'm getting better because I realize that some people that's just the way that they are, and I don't get to change them. But it was the day I started looking or asking God to help me. And then the other pivotal day for me was when God began to show me his sons and his daughters through his lens. And I began to have empathy and compassion for them. That's when the real change began to come. And as a direct result of me being set free, my very presence sets other people free. And I don't have to say that. Wayne, it takes time to heal and evolve. You're absolutely correct. Because we never ever have it all together. But the idea, Wayne, and thank you so much for watching, my brother. Thank you so much for watching. The idea behind all of that, though, is not so much that it takes time. The idea is to give yourself some grace and begin to make changes. Begin to break the generational curses, of the dysfunction that you've seen. And I talk to a lot of brothers, and Wayne, you know this, I do. What I want them to do is to stop complaining. And I want them to truly begin to see themselves as the kings that they are. Because I truly believe that when men begin to see themselves as kings, that they start embracing the fact that there is a mantle given them and there is a responsibility given them, not by women, but by God. And when you begin to see yourself the way that God sees you, your entire life begins to change. Because you don't have to be at the bottom. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to struggle with people, women, your kids. You don't have to struggle with all of that. You don't have to even struggle at work. When you give it to God, he'll fight your battles. And because of the way that men are built, you're warriors. Because of the way that you're built, it's hard for men to surrender because men see surrender as defeat. When the truth of the matter is, when you surrender to God, that is where the elevation takes place. When you say, I will never forget Antoine Moore and Kim Shea, when I interviewed them years ago. I will never forget. Antoine said he was reading the Word of God and he felt convicted and he began to change. And I think that men have just been so conditioned to think that they're in this thing alone, no matter how many days they go and sit in church and Bible studies and everything, that they're in it alone and they can't do it by themselves. And I think The reality is that once you realize that you're the king or a king, you deal with people differently because you now know who you are. And it's an identity crisis because men don't feel like they're enough. And as a direct result of that, they don't treat women like they're enough. And women feel that energy, and some women tolerate it and put up with it, and other women's like, I'll pass. But your blessing is in the unity that you have with your sister friends, with your sisters, with the woman that you choose. And so if we want things to change in our lives for men and for women, we got to be different. We can't keep looking at somebody else to be the change. We have ourselves have to change. And that's the truth. Listen, I love y'all like I love some cooked food. I'm finna run up over here and go in these little TikTok streets for a little bit. And I will catch up with y'all later. Y'all have a blessed night. I love y'all. And watch me tonight, 8 p.m. on Bars and Hoops Radio or here on Facebook with me and Najib Smith. We finna talk about it tonight. Child support. We finna talk about it. We finna talk about it. Listen, I love y'all. Y'all have a blessed night, and I'll see y'all later on at 8 o'clock. Y'all be blessed.